Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are finishing up with Locrine today. We've made it to the end and we're going to hear from Ate, who does an epilogue for us. So, brief overview of the play. We had a war between the Britons and the Scythians, and the Britons won, and the Briton king fell in love with the Scythian queen and decided to marry her, much to the chagrin of the existing Briton queen, who then waged war against him, and she won and he lost, and he killed himself and his wife killed himself, and their daughter ended up killing herself by drowning herself in a river. And the spurned queen, Gwendolen, was like, okay, yeah, we'll name the river after the daughter and we'll bury the husband and we'll just let Estrilde's body sit outside and sort of rot, and that's what she deserves. So then Ate comes out to do the epilogue and says, lo, hear the end of lawless treachery, of usurpation and ambitious pride. And they that for their private amours dare turmoil our land and set their broils abroach, let them be warned by these premises. And as a woman was the only cause that civil discord was then stirred up, so let us pray for that renowned maid, that 38 years the sceptre swayed in quiet peace and sweet felicity. And every wight that seeks her grace's smart, would that this sword were pierced in his heart. And that's the end of the play. So she's wrapping things up. She's saying this is the end of the story here, and let it serve as a warning to anybody that's going to turn their personal business into an all-out war, that, you know, that's not a great way to go about it. And she also says the very ending is oddly feminist, which I think is interesting, given that the end of Act 5, Scene 5, it came down to Gwendolen versus Sabran, and Sabran had the courage to not be taken hostage by Gwendolen, and Gwendolen had the strength to grab Sabran by the neck and threaten her. You know, there's a lot going on with the women at the very end of this play. So the end of this little bit is like, let's also be glad that, you know, since a woman was the one that started this, let's be glad that we've had a queen for the last 38 years who has ruled us in peace. And this is a reference to Queen Elizabeth I. And those last two lines feel, to me anyway, oddly feminist, saying like, any person that wants to feel the pain of that queen, you know, let's get rid of them right now, sort of thing. It's sort of a weird way to end the play, sort of like wishing for revenge on any man that's going to try to emulate this woman's pain. Something along those lines. So anyway, that's Locrine. It's an interesting play. Having finished it, I don't know that I would agree with the fact that it was written by Shakespeare, and I think a lot of the experts also don't think in the end that it was written by Shakespeare, but it was included like in the third folio or something along those lines. In large part because I feel like this play desperately needed an editor, and I feel like Shakespeare was better at keeping things succinct. There seem to be a lot of instances in this play of people repeating themselves, and or the audience getting the same information that we had already gotten, like in the previous monologue, would now be repeated in this one. So it's almost like this one was written without giving the audience the benefit of intelligence. You know, like it was written thinking that the people watching the play weren't going to be able to keep up or had no idea what was going on. And in fairness, this is a play called Locrine, but I don't know that it's necessarily a story about Locrine. We don't get to know him very well. We don't really get to see an arc that he goes through. You know, we see him crowned king, and then we don't see him for quite some time until he wins this battle and then takes a queen and turns into a tyrant, and then at the end he decides that he doesn't want to go back home a prisoner, so he kills himself. So it's not really a protagonist type character arc, and I'm not sure that we really see many character actual arcs. We don't see a lot of change except for people going from being alive to being dead, and a lot of them get to that point through suicide. So it's rather unsatisfactory to me on a lot of various levels. And for as much supposed war as there is in this play, we don't get to see a lot of that on stage either. So it is very Greek tragedy in that way, both with Ate doing these dumb shows as prologues to each act and saying like, okay, this is what this act is going to be about and this is what this act is going to be about, but also in that a lot of the exciting stuff happens off stage while these characters are just on stage talking at us. So yeah, I don't know that it's my favorite of the Apocrypha that we've gone through so far, but I would be curious to hear what all of you thought of it. Did you enjoy the characters? Did you snicker at some of the names? What did you think? Where did you think that this play was going to go? What storylines do you wish had been wrapped up differently than they were? Yeah, I would love to know your thoughts on this one. Please leave them in the comments. And then come back tomorrow because we're going to start in on London Prodigal. So we've got new play day coming tomorrow on another episode of Shakesyear. I'll see you then. Mwah.